Welcome again to Joe Stunner Boxing. Let's drag ourselves away from the farce that is the heavyweight division and talk about some real boxing and some fighters who actually do want to face each other and are, setting themselves up for success or failure, taking that risk. Two of my favourite fighters are going to meet in the very near future at the weekend. It's going to be George Kambosos Jr. versus Maxi Hughes, and this is one of those fights where is it for the industry guy, the hardcore fan? Well, maybe, but I'd really love to see these two guys get a sort of broader, a bit of a broader publicity, because I think that they're both the types of fighters that I want to see, the types of fighters that I admire. Now, we know about Kambosos. He went over to America. He was undefeated at the time. He beat the previously undefeated Teofimo Lopez. I think a lot of people have been sort of revised history, if you like, and said, well, he caught him at the right time, and Lopez he was ill and he almost died, and look, all of this is absolutely irrelevant. No one said any of this at the time. If Lopez got into the ring and he was at death's door, well, whose fault is that? That's probably his father's or his team's or his own. Kambosos didn't know any of this. He's a road warrior. He got to the number one ranking by travelling the world. He beat who was it now? Was it Lee Selby, wasn't it? In Britain, took on Lopez in America and beat him legitimately beat him. And then instead of sitting on the belts plural, what did he do? He said, "Oh, give me Lomachenko. Lomachenko's not available. All right, give me Haney." Haney beat him. What did Kambosos do? I'll have him again. Beat him again. Worse the second time than the first time. But the point is that George Kambosos is a fighter, a real fighter. And, I've always said defeats don't define you. Defeats are what you learn from. We all have to be, bad before we can be good. We all have to be ignorant before we can be wise. And George Kambosos is a real fighter. He's currently 20 wins, 2 defeats. The Lopez fight was his last victory, but talk about experience. 24 rounds against Haney, 12 against Lopez, an absolute firefight. I like this guy a lot. I just think he's a fighting man, and that's what I want to see. He's 30 years old now, but that's still 3 years younger than Maxi Hughes, who is really enjoying an absolute Indian summer in his career, because Maxi's record is 26 wins, only 5 inside the distance, 5 defeats, 2 of those were stoppages, and 2 draws. But Maxi hasn't lost since 2019 when he lost a 10-rounder to Liam Walsh. Prior to that, he got stopped in 8 by Sam Bowen. Martin J. Ward outpointed him. I think, he lost twice to Martin J. Ward, because one of them was a 5th round retirement, was it? And then he fought him again and lost on points. At the time, Ward was undefeated, and he's since lost twice. So it just shows you if you stick with it, suddenly the guy who looks like he's on top can end up falling. And if you stick with it, you stay dedicated, you keep a bit of self-belief and a bit of motivation, eventually you will maximise your talent. And I think that's what Maxi's done. He's really maximised everything he's taken what talent he has and stretched it almost to breaking point. And he also lost a 10-rounder back in 2013 to Scott Cardle. So this is, and if you look at his early record, it's full of journeymen. You would never have believed that Maxi Hughes would find himself, beating Kid Galahad on a majority decision, which was his last fight. That was back in September last year, I think. He beat Ryan Walsh, 12-round decision. Paul Hyland Jr., he stopped him in 8. The turning point really was the John O'Carroll victory back in 2020 when he won a 10-round decision, because he was expected to lose that. And then they kept matching him in. He'll get him another payday. And he just kept winning. And lo and behold, here he is fighting George Kambosos in America. It's a fantastic story. How do I think the fight will go? Well, let's look at their styles, because Maxi Hughes is a southpaw, an aggressive sort of come forward fighter, a box fighter you might say. Has quite a wide stance, tends to move forward, relatively quickly. He quickens his feet quite well. He hasn't got the fastest feet, but they're not slow by any means. And he does, from his southpaw stance, he very often will fire the jab and the backhand will soon follow it. He likes that 1-2. There's an awful lot of 1-2s. That's not to say he's a one-trick pony, far from it. He fires a lot of hooks and he never neglects the body, which I like. And he's very, very aggressive. He's very much a physical presence. Now, George is another what you'd call a box fighter, but he's orthodox. And he can be very, very aggressive. I mean, we saw that against Lopez. He started. I mean, he's a counter puncher essentially, but the moment he stings you, he'll jump in and he'll let his hands go in bunches, punches in bunches. But orthodox. So there's an awful lot of. I mean, with Maxi, he sort of mixes it up. You do get straight punches, but he likes some wide ones as well, especially to the body. He does like some wide hooks. With George, George is more compact. He's a little bit more upright. Stances are a bit narrower. And he tends to sort of move forward very, very quickly. And then, but he seems to, I've noticed with George, he likes to sort of get onto the edge of the range. And then when the guy thinks he's coming for him, he'll step in and then George will clock him. So it's almost like it's an aggressive counter puncher. Very busy George, very fires a lot of punches. Great engine. We know he's got a great chin. Took all that punishment from Haney. I mean, Haney's not a one-punch hitter, but my God, he hit George enough times. But you know, very good jaw, very good engine. Kambosos, a lot of grit. This guy won't quit. I mean, he's got that sort of Greco, that Australian Greek thing going on, where he's very proud of his heritage and the country he's from, and you can tell he draws inspiration from that. I think he draws a lot of motivation, a lot of determination from being that that Spartan warrior type. Maxi Hughes, down to earth guy. I mean, I can see this being a real firefight because both these guys like to get aggressive. Neither of them really takes a step back. George, he might give you a few angles. He might take the odd side step. Maxi's a bit more coming in through the front door type. Although once he gets there, the punches are coming from all angles, which is good. I think, weighing it up, I think probably what's going to happen is we are going to have a terrific fight. Really, one to remember. I don't see them cancelling each other out. Styles, southpaw versus orthodox. Occasionally that clashes a bit. You get a lot of treading on the feet, and it gets a bit messy. But no, I think this will be a good fight. Well worth watching. I think probably we might see George early on being a bit slick, moving a little, not backwards, but trying to draw Maxi in. I think Maxi won't disappoint him. He'll come in again through the front door. George will have something waiting for him. Don't think Maxi will be deterred. I think he'll keep coming forward. I think in the middle rounds, Maxi might start to do some work. I think the first 4 rounds, after 4, you'll probably see George ahead, maybe 3-1, something like that. And then in the middle rounds, Maxi will come on strong, test George's engine, test his resolve, start landing to the body. George ain't shy of throwing body punches either, but I think Maxi I would suspect might be physically stronger, and I think he will come forward in the middle rounds, maybe get hold of George a bit more, land some cleaner punches. Southpaw stance, don't think it will give George too many problems, but I think as George begins to slow down in the middle rounds, Maxi might pull back a lot of the deficit. But in the last 3 or 4 rounds, I think George will get his second wind. I think will come on strong. Maxi might sag a bit in the last 3 or 4. I see this being a relatively close fight, but I think George Kambosos wins a close decision. I'll say unanimous, although it could be majority or a split, but I'll go with unanimous. 115, 113. Maybe a 116, 112 in the mix as well. But I think George Kambosos wins this on points. That's my honest opinion. What do you think? Comments below. Let me know who you think's going to win. What do you think of both fighters? Are you a fan like I am of both these guys? It's over in America, this fight. So neutral turf. And yeah, let me know what you think. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the subscribe button, it helps us out. And the like button if you don't mind. And yeah, I'm looking forward to reading your comments. Thanks for your time as always. Bye for now.